How do I spell your name, Natalie?
R-U-S-H-M-A-N.
What are you gonna Google her now?
I thought I was ogling her. Oh, wow. Very, very impressive individual.
so
She's fluent
predictable,
in
you know
French, Italian, Russian, Latin. Who speaks Latin?
No one speaks Latin.
No
It's
one
a
speaks
dead
Latin?
language. You can read Latin or you can
Yeah.
write Latin,
Did
but
you
you can't
model in
speak Latin.
Tokyo?
The wrist lock that Black Widow used on Happy only works if you can grab a very specific part of the hand, and because Happy is wearing a glove, it simply wouldn't work. However, the takedown looked awesome, and then that is a really great headlock. I really liked how it introduced Black Widow into the series, especially by showing the difference in power between Black Widow and Happy, which comes back into play later.
So please now, go away. Thank you.
Listen, we gotta get these bitches out of here.
She gets him in an arm lock right here, and because of the lighting, I can't really see whether or not the technique is being done correctly, but I love that she's using the pain as a deterrent. That's super common in martial arts, so I love seeing it.
I need NY. Stay in the car.
I'm not staying in the car.
I said stay in the car.
What are you wearing? Look, I'm not letting you go in there alone.
You want to help? Keep the car running.
Okay.
Happy starts off with a really strong right hook, and they take some liberties with reality in this clip because electricity causes your muscles to spasm. So as soon as that guy got shocked in both legs, he would have gone down immediately. Now the move that Black Widow does coming up is called a Kong Gainer. It wouldn't work the way that they show it here because one, most of the time Kong Gainers are only thrown if there's quite a bit of distance between the object you're vaulting off of and the ground. And then second, they frame it in a way to make it look like she's doing a flying double front, but you can't land that kick standing. She would have to have landed on her back. But I really love this other parkour that she's doing. My favorite thing about this clip is juxtaposing the fighting styles between Happy and the guards and Black Widow. Happy and the guards are all using very Western, like boxing, MMA techniques. It's a lot of hooks, a lot of crosses, a lot of fronts. Black Widow is using much more acrobatic stuff. She's using parkour, she's using gymnastics, she's using like Aikido style takedowns, and it's really fun to watch. Nice sweep, that was a good knee. And now she gets to use this cable, and I love Black Widow's cable work. It's probably my favorite thing about her character. The cable choreo in this and future movies is so innovative. And I feel like Iron Man 2 is the first movie I saw to show this move. After this move appeared everywhere, and you still see it in choreo. Also, that was a great spinning hook. I'm a sucker for spinning hooks. Love it anytime I see it in movies. And that's a left uppercut followed up by a right uppercut. And you can clearly see the difference in styles, which is indicative of the difference in skill level between the two characters.
Да? Это ее.
Ты слушай внимательно.
You're at 114 Selensky Plaza, 3rd floor.
This scene is a really great example of how every single scene in a movie should have its own physical and emotional arc where we should see a change in expectations. We start and we assume she's been captured, her life is in danger, and that she's in a sticky situation. And then we very quickly realize that this whole thing has been engineered by her. She's interrogating them and she's manipulating them in order to get the information she wants. We also see the emotional arc because it doesn't matter how much physical danger she's in. The scene doesn't change until she hears that her friend has been compromised, and that's what flips the switch for her. It's super interesting and it's good structural writing. And this choreo isn't anything particularly innovative. This scene is more about highlighting the absurdity of the situation than the actual choreography itself. And you can tell by the playful bongo music in the background, which is a fun choice, and then also juxtaposing it with this shot with Coulson, who's just like chilling. That was a breakaway chair, and I was hoping that we would get to see more escrimistic choreo right here with her using the chair leg as an escrimistic. She kind of just forgets about it though. That was a really great kip up. And right here she uses her signature acrobatic takedown. And it's fun to see those moves. They help reinforce a character's style. And they're making some interesting choices with camera angles here as well, which I like. I like it when filmmakers make different interesting choices. So that's cool to see.
Where's Barton now?
I like how you can immediately tell the difference in tone between this fight and the last one. This fight is darker and much more serious. And Black Widow is very smart here. She knows that Hawkeye is a long-range fighter, so she closes the distance immediately. That's smart. However, there is an issue in pacing here. She goes down to a lower level, but then suddenly appears on the same level as him, which makes me think that there was some content there that was probably cut for time. I like this wide shot, and I really like this bit right here where Hawkeye uses the recoil of the bow to close the distance between him and Black Widow. It's those really small things in choreo that are super innovative that I love seeing. And I think in this part of the clip, you can see that Marvel hadn't quite figured out the formula for super polished fight scenes yet. It's just not quite as crisp and clean as it is in their later movies. Love the bite, and then that was an awesome backflip into the head slam against the railing. That looked great. And that left cross was framed perfectly.
What about the nurse that lives across the hall from you? She seems kind of nice.
I love this exchange. It really shows their relationship, and it also brings a levity and a lightness to the scene, which juxtaposes really nicely with the seriousness of the fight. Black Widow starts off really strong here, and I really like it when women use their sexiness as a tool in fights. I think it's really fun to see. And this rappel is really cool. Rappels are usually pretty easy and safe to do in film, and they bring an extra dynamic element that you don't usually get to see, especially with the camera tracking down and also from the bottom up perspective. It looks really good. And I loved the shot. The fact that she was totally silent when she landed shows how much of an elite combatant she is. Plus, with the fact that she totally breaks her cover before she knocks that guy out, just shows a level of confidence that is super badass. I also really loved this stunt right here. The choke into the midair kip up. The reason that they broke that up into two shots is because that move is really technically difficult to do, but it still looked really great. There's some parkour right here. That's a side vault into a forward roll, and that stunt wasn't practical. That car was actually coming at that stunt woman. I actually did a forward roll out of the way. Stunts like that are super underappreciated, but they're so cool. And I remember when I first saw this, I was really surprised that she swan dived off of the cement railing. I thought she was gonna try to do a forward roll out of it, but it makes much more sense that she would use the grappling hook, which was cool. I also want to bring up this shot. This shows a level of situational awareness that a lot of fighters don't have. Especially when you have adrenaline pumping and you're in the middle of a fight, it's really easy to get tunnel vision and forget about what's going on around you. And the fact that she didn't and was able to observe that minute detail in order to twist the fight in her favor shows just how much of an experienced combatant Black Widow really is. I also really enjoyed this shot, which brings up another interesting concept I want to talk about. When you see a fight between two very high-level participants, a lot of it is about finding or creating an opening that one person can use to manipulate the other. So a lot of times that's done by trying out different sequences of moves or observing your opponent's patterns of behavior or trying to find tells. But that concept is illustrated really well here with the cell phone and the explosion.
Rendezvous 2 minutes.
Black Widow comes in with a flying front kick and then goes into a modified acrobatic takedown using the cable to choke him instead. Now, logistically, that wouldn't work exactly because her left thigh was in between the cable and his neck, so it wouldn't actually be able to choke him, but it looked super great. And now she is repositioning. I think that this is also a really cool concept to talk about. Positioning can mean a lot in fights, especially when you're outside of a ring or a designated area. And so taking the time to disengage and re-engage in a more favorable position for you is another very high level concept that they're showing here. And Steve comes in to save the day, and I've actually already reacted to this fight. It was one of my very first reacts, so go easy on it. But if you want to check it out, I'll include the link here. This is another example of how using really quick cuts can hide potential inefficiencies actors may have during fight scenes. Each of these strikes has its own dedicated cuts. Some of them are even cut into two, but the clip looked great. The actress playing that woman must be in her 50s, maybe even her 60s, but I think her and the double did a really great job.
Did I step on your moment?
That was a flying roundhouse elbow into a forward dive roll, and that's another variation of her signature acrobatic takedown. It's cool to see how many different variations they can come up with as the movies continue coming out.
Shoot them. Which ones? All of them!
If you look at this clip and just this movie in general, you'll notice that there isn't a ton of fight choreo for Black Widow, and the fight choreo that does exist doesn't show Scarlett Johansson's face. It's because she was super pregnant during the filming of Age of Ultron, so they did a good job of hiding it.
Got a window. 4, 3. Give him hell.
I loved this scene. I love motorcycle sequences in general, but most people don't know that anytime you do a driving stunt, but especially with the motorcycle stunt, every single one of those drivers in that shot is a stunt driver. So getting shots like this requires coordination between a team of 20 different drivers. It's insane, but it is so cool. That front really looked amazing. Another fun fact, the motorcycle that is featured in this clip is a prototype of Harley-Davidson's first ever electric motorcycle called the Livewire. Age of Ultron was filmed in 2015, but the Livewire didn't come out until 2019, a full 4 years later. So Harley-Davidson gave Marvel access to their first prototype bike 4 years before it hit the market for this movie, which I think is so cool.
I'm going in. Cap, can you keep him occupied?
What do you think I've been doing?
This was a tricky shot right here, the stunt double getting up onto the seat of the bike, and then you could tell, because of the cuts, that they had some wires involved for that stunt.
You can't save them all. You'll never. Never what? You didn't finish!
So front flip into a forward roll into some electric baton extremistic stuff. I really love seeing that choreo, and I wish they had had more. This choreo is pretty good though. I love it when you get to see a prop shared with two fighters, especially when it's that fluid and cohesive. It's just fun to see.
He's here. Rumlow has a biological weapon.
I'm on it.
Black Widow starts off with this really great motorcycle stunt, and laying down a bike always presents some form of risk to the stunt person, so it's impressive to see it done well. That was a jump flying double kick, and this choreo is a really strong return to form for Black Widow, especially in Age of Ultron. Because Scarlett Johansson was pregnant, she wasn't able to do that much hand-to-hand combat. Her and her stunt double especially are really pulling out all the stops here, which I loved seeing. And this aerial shot capturing this choreo, I mean, they're getting like 3 to 4 moves in a single shot. It's pretty good.
I don't work like that no more.
And then this stunt right here, they would have had crash pads laying the bottom of that truck in order to make it safe for the stunt person. And I remember the first time seeing this, thinking Black Widow was in a lot of trouble here. I don't know the logistics of grenades enough to know that if putting a body between you and a close proximity blast would be enough to prevent any form of damage, but it was like a really cool bit.
I've got 4, they're splitting up.
And this is another cool stunt right here. Standing on top of the bike and then moving from the bike onto the hoods of moving cars isn't a super hard stunt to do. And I really liked this parkour chase sequence. That was a cash vault into like a side flip. And we haven't seen Black Widow do a cash vault since her premiere in Iron Man 2. So it was cool to see. And then that was an awesome takedown. And this choreo, again, is really well done. They're getting like 3 to 4 moves for each shot. And they're getting some money shots with Scarlett Johansson in him. It flows really seamlessly between her and her stunt double. That's a variation of the aerial takedown again. It's fun to see how many variations they can pull off. We've never seen her do it directly into another takedown on another person.
Drop it. Or I'll drop this. Drop it! He'll do it!
And that was a great dive into a kip up.
Payload secure.
Looked awesome.
Thanks, Sam.
Don't thank me.
I'm not thinking that thing.
And I really love the pacing of this fight sequence, starting with Iron Man and then moving into Sharon Carter and Black Widow working together, and then moving to T'Challa, which is so good. She does another variation of the aerial takedown here, but instead of taking him down, she pounds on his head. Honestly, pounding the crown of someone's head is not super effective. If I were her, I would have tried to choke him out with her thighs instead.
Move, Captain. I won't ask a second time.
Look, I really don't want to hurt you.
Black Widow immediately puts Ant-Man into an arm lock, but then he counters and gets her in her own arm lock. This shot was really funny to me. As a stunt person, you're always controlling your own falls. That is how stunts are normally done. They just didn't have a person there pretending to be
What the hell
her.
is that? Everyone's got a gimmick now.
And this Black Widow versus Hawkeye rematch reminded me of the Avengers. It was a really nice callback. That was a great takedown.
We're still friends, right?
Depends on how hard you hit me.
Followed up by another really good takedown. Nice form on the side kick. And then that stunt was gnarly.
You were pulling your punches.
This was an explosive way to start the fight sequence between Black Widow and Taskmaster. I think it's interesting to point out that Black Widow subverted a couple of expectations when it comes to action films in general. Action films generally start off with really high-level action sequences. This movie did the opposite of that. Instead, it started with this really grounded, character-driven snapshot into Black Widow's history with her family. It even subverted that expectation a second time when Black Widow was supposedly going to be captured by S.H.I.E.L.D. However, I thought both of those sequences were done really well, and I thought it was very interesting to see this slow build here as well.
I'm pretty sure Ross has no jurisdiction here. You should know I'm a better shot when I'm pissed off.
Now, obviously, the first thing that we think of when we see Taskmaster's shield is how reminiscent it is to Captain America's shield. We learn more about why Taskmaster has that shield later, but it begs a really interesting question right from the top of the film. And I like how they're playing with speed ramps here. This section is slowed down, this section is normal speed, and that's fast. That was a really great Capoeira style flip kick. Now we get Black Widow's signature acrobatic takedown, which is called the head scissor takedown, but we've never seen anyone be able to counter it into another head scissor takedown. And I love how we get to see different variants of the head scissor takedown every single time Black Widow shows up in a Marvel movie. I really hope they continue to do it with Florence Pugh's character. This is some really great knife choreo. That was a really tricky move right there. And I love seeing the head control with the hair. That's something that anyone with long hair has to deal with in combat. So it's great to see incorporated in movies like this. I loved this part. I wondered why she didn't just do that right from the top, but for the purposes of the film, like, it makes sense. This is some great sword choreo we're getting here. And then that was a really strong way to end the fight. I did feel like it was a little bit abrupt. I wanted to see more. The sequences of action weren't actually that long in this fight, but honestly, it was just a taste of what's coming.
I know you know I'm out here.
The fight scene between Yelena and Natasha was my favorite fight scene in the whole Black Widow movie because it did such a great job of illustrating their relationship in the fight. From the very top of the scene, the dialogue reflects how neither character really has an advantage over the other. They're both coming from an equal place of power. That's reflected again right here. Both of them are using the exact same technique. They're even walking at the same speed. They could be exact mirrors of each other, which illustrates how close they were as siblings and how much their bond affected each other, even though they haven't seen each other in 20-some years. It's reinforced again with that technique. And then we dive into the fight and it just gets really down and dirty very quickly. I love how brutal Yelena is. It really reminds me of Black Widow.
Stay down! Stay down! Stay down!
And how viciously she yells right there. It's just so great. Love seeing the towel stuff. That was a sick takedown. Doing like the roll into hitting the door frames. Props to that stunt person because that looked awesome. And now we're incorporating found props, which I love to see. And Florence Pugh is looking great. The first movie that I saw her in was Midsommar, but she did do Fighting with My Family, so she has a background in action films. But I was really surprised with how well she performed here. I thought she did an amazing job. This whole fight gave me really Atomic Blonde vibes with the viciousness and also the pacing. And then right here reminded me of Jason Bourne. It's apparent to me that both of those films influenced this scene, which is great.
Come on, we're just going to press buttons and hack computers. I mean, I don't know. There's nothing for me to do, and I want to break something.
There is something you can break.
I didn't anticipate Red Guardian fighting Taskmaster in the movie, but once we got to this point, I thought it made a lot of sense. Obviously, David Harbour has experience doing some fighting with Stranger Things, but that's not really an action-heavy franchise, so I was very interested to see how he would perform in the movie. The pacing for this fight was a little off, but if you watch closely, you can see elements from Black Widow, Black Panther, the Winter Soldier, and Captain America that the Taskmaster is using in this fight, which is so cool to see. Crashing through glass is always really dynamic, so I love seeing it. And it ended up that David Harbour's character didn't have that much fight choreo itself. More of it was about selling the partner that he's fighting with, selling the strikes that he's being delivered, which is also an important aspect of fight choreos. And then love seeing the head scissor there from Rachel Weisz too. I thought thematically that it fit quite well.
So talkative now, are you? You took my childhood. You took my choices and tried to break me. But you're never gonna do that to anybody ever again.
Nobody leaves this room until she's dead.
This was an impressive scene. First off, group fights are always really hard to choreograph, and I thought they did it really well here, especially with the pacing of the speed ramps. You can see that they're coming in groups of 1, 2, and 3, which is how a big group fight would work in real life. You wouldn't be able to necessarily have 12 people fight one person simultaneously. It just logistically would not work. I really love the lighting that they're using here. This really strong yellows with the red room light looks great. And then also, I just have to say, I have never seen a group fight comprised of only women. I really loved seeing it. I think it elevates the standard that Hollywood needs to start holding themselves to. And it shows that women can throw down just as hard as men and pull off action sequences that are just as compelling, which is true and awesome. That was also a crazy stunt. I've never seen someone get thrown and then have the throw assisted by another person in midair. It just looked so great. Thematically, Black Widow's in a lot of trouble here. I mean, I think canonically she'd be able to take 1, 2, probably even like 6 of these widows, but you've got like 18 or so, right? Just right here. She's in a really tough spot. And then Yelena is the one to save her, which I think thematically is very strong. The final fight sequence in this movie was interesting because in most action films, the final sequence is the confrontation between the protagonist and the big baddie. In the beginning of Black Widow, the big baddie was framed to be Taskmaster, but then that was quickly subverted and we learned that Dreykov was the one pulling the strings. At this point in the movie, Dreykov has already been eliminated, but Taskmaster is still an unresolved variable. What makes it more interesting is that the Taskmaster represents a lot of emotional turmoil for Black Widow because her past actions led to the creation of the Taskmaster character. Taskmaster also represents all of the guilt and shame that Black Widow feels as a result of Antonia basically like losing her life to become the Taskmaster. Because of all of that, we don't really get a huge physical confrontation between the two. It turns out to be much more of an emotionally based scene, which in the grand scheme of things, I think is the right choice. Action movies and just movies in general are best when they are grounded in a real, emotional, character-driven space. So even though I was expecting the final fight to be longer and flashier than it actually was, I think they ended up making the right choice. We get these speed ramps with the sword, which look really beautiful. The double kick into the backflip looks great. And then this is what I'm talking about. Instead of continuing the fight, Black Widow tries to emotionally reconcile with Taskmaster. Goes into the chokehold, and then Black Widow gets this really great like piggyback move. We get another type of takedown right there. Good kip up, and then that's basically the end of the fight. Honestly, this fight sequence was one of my favorite sequences in the whole movie. Both Proxima Midnight and Corvus Blade's weapon choreo has a lot of crossover with bow staff choreo, which I love seeing. That was a great kip up. That was a really tricky kick. And yeah, again, a lot of this choreo is very similar to how a bow staff would be used. It could have been pulled straight from an East Asian film. I really like seeing bow staff choreo.
On my way.
He'll die alone, as will you.
She's not alone.
This sequence was one of my favorite sequences in the movie as well. Black Widow's using her electric bow staff, Okoye's using the spear, and Dr. Midnight's got the sword. And the aerial shot makes it look so good. Most of these shots are mediums to close-ups, which makes it hard to see the choreography itself, but it really puts you into the emotional state of the character, which is really, really good. When Black Widow splits the bow staff into a Screama stick, I thought it was gonna mark the turning point for this fight because she's so talented with the Screama choreo. That was not the case. And I actually remember being really surprised with how abrupt that ending was. Did you guys think it worked? Let me know in the comments.
That's really gross.
Okay. You win.
Hawkeye's technique for this takedown is actually really good. Breaking your opponent's stance on the lower half, but then also putting pressure on your opponent's top half, controls their body and controls the takedown in a really, really great way. Now, this scene illustrates a concept that I think is very important in order to pull off a good fight scene. The ebb and flow of who's winning and who's losing is changing moment to moment. Hawkeye takes down Black Widow, and then Black Widow reverses the takedown, and then Hawkeye creates an explosion, and then Black Widow jumps off the cliff, and each time you think someone else is going to win the fight, and then one thing changes the balance drastically. And having that happen multiple times within one fight makes it entertaining to watch. They do that really, really well here. And with the additional emotional stakes, this scene pays off in a really great way.
Wait.
Let me go.
No. Please, no.
And I also love how they're juxtaposing these wide shots of the area and the mountain with these really close-ups of Black Widow talking to Hawkeye. It contextualizes the emotion in a really nice way. I also would have really loved to see a close-up of Black Widow hitting the ground, similar to Gwen Stacy's death in Spider-Man 2. I think that would have grounded it in an even deeper emotional way that would have been really compelling.